And Aya's looking and breathing heavily, and Gilbin is sobbing while pulling harshly on Vadark's fur, going, "Can I get down?"
Vadark will remain in direwolf form, but will sort of drop down onto his paws to allow him off.
Fantastic.
And start sniffing around and searching around for any extras.
How far away from the party are you willing to get in your exploration? 30, 60 feet?
Yeah, probably 60-ish feet.
Okay, thank you. And what is everyone else doing as I position that?
I feel Brooke. Oh, God.
Amber saddles up next to Aya just to kind of check in. How you doing?
Okay. So as you are moving up to see how Aya's doing, Aya is like, damn, I didn't get to hit it. She's frustrated. She's like, come on, there's got to be more.
I'm sure there are plenty, but let's take a breather.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, which one of you made my torch do that cool thing?
That would be Brooks.
Oh. All right. Strongest and coolest. I don't like what you did to me, but you get it. And she's going to turn around and she's going to be looking at the spiders. She goes, so do we loot the spiders? Is she sticking her hand into the carapace?
You could loot the spider. Brooks is like, I feel crying at this point because he's just so over this. He's like, I just want to go home too, guys. Like, just get your crap. Let's go. We won.
Vadak, you're going to notice one thing as you're exploring and everyone's checking in. Gilbin is doing fine, by the way. He is actively latched onto whoever is closest of the party, trying not to get separated. And mostly he is furtively looking everywhere, trying to see if there's any more spiders coming down from any of the walls. But Vadak, as you approach, you'll notice that in this cave, all the other caves were more of like a small den. But this one, the back end, it looks like part of the wall had collapsed, which leads into a deeper cave. And based on the volume of spider web, you may have found where the actual spiders are coming out of.
Okay, I'll sort of quickly scoot back towards the party.
Okay.
And motion for them to follow up.
Sure. So you motion to the group. Gilbin and Aya are willing to kind of follow your lead. Gilbin, misspoke there for a moment. Brooks, you will notice that Gilbin has grabbed onto your sleeve and or robe and has basically been trying to stick with you and stay apace with you in the party wherever you're at. So he's essentially using you as the beacon of this is the safe place to stand. Does the party venture up to the next level and join Vidark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and leave the tokens there for now. So as you guys are approaching, you do see what Vidark was already kind of seeing in wolf form, and he was unable to tell you thanks to his inability to talk, but his gesturing towards you guys to come and join him was heard and understood. And you get up there, and all of you are also able to see that about 10 to 15 feet into this cave, there is an absolute opening that's occurring towards the back, and the volume of spider webs also leads you to believe that this is probably not a nest, but how the spiders, these large giant spiders, got out of their deep pits in the first place. Would you guys like to enter into the cave to look and see any additional details?
Player 1 Aves would like to just sort of, I guess, investigate the cave's walls and structure, because you mentioned something about like a cave-in or something like that.
That's right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're able to find hidden along a side of a wall, man-made rope leading down into that. This was probably opened up through either magical means, explosives, or through some sort of excavation. It seems like someone opened up this area to the spiders. Maybe they're still down there, maybe not. But the spiders have definitely used it to their advantage to get out and hunt.
sniffing around the area, is there any sort of, can I get any indication on how long it's been since a humanoid presence was around here?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give me a nature check, and you can do it with advantage.
23.
You are unable to detect any new humanoids, but you catch more of that scent on the main trail. And you're assuming these were the caravans who have probably complained and raised the issue about the spiders in the first place. Maybe the occasional general traveler. But by the cave itself, no, you don't smell anything recent, but you do smell something that has your nose wrinkled. And I'm going to ask something from your character background. Would your character have had any opportunity to be in the upper levels of the Underdark or in deep caverns at any point in time where they may have seen the creatures or been exposed to them?
Exposure to creatures from the Underdark and corrupted creatures from the Underdark, yes.
Great. You are able to detect whiffs of one thing that is probably the main reason these spiders are going out of control. You smell a basilisk. And it seems like a basilisk must have moved its den or its lair higher up, which in turn caused these spiders to push up and outside of the cave in the first place. And the fact that you smell no scent whatsoever of these men, in conjunctions with Abe's exploration and finding the rope, which upon deeper investigation, the rope is quite old. You think that this either needs to be blocked up or reported to the guild to send out a properly outfitted group to deal with the threat of a basilisk that could easily start turning people to stone if they're not careful.
Zadok will drop his wild-shaped form. We need to withdraw from this area. I smell a basilisk. Yes, we are not outfitted for this.
Aya's gonna pause and go, a basilisk? What's that?
A terrifying creature from the Underdark can turn you to stone with but a glance. We need to leave.
She'll go, what about anyone else that comes through? Can't we maybe move this rock and block it and at least keep it in there?
If we have the ability, sure.
She's like, I've got some strong arms, and Christ, she's gonna point over at Amber and go, she crushed a spider just a minute ago.
I
And
could
you know what?
certainly help.
There is a few loose rocks here, but based on the shape of the cave, you'd be better suited trying to block that entrance than to fill the hall. It may accidentally open the hall up wider. But her idea is mildly sound. If nothing else, it may stop the easy exit of more spiders and or the basilisk, or it may not. It probably won't hold them if they're determined.
So Amber agrees with her idea and asks the group if they're on board to try to block this.
I
Right,
quite
Marcus.
like not having my skin turned to stone, so I'll do anything to help.
Okay.
Zadok will start
So-
grabbing rocks and just piling them at the
Right.
entrance.
Okay. And Aya's going to be jumping in to help too. And she's going for really large rocks. And she's displaying a level of strength that is far higher than one might expect of her. She is definitely showing an aptitude in the martial categories, both in how she handles herself in a fight and how she's moving things. It takes about an hour. Night does fall during this time, but you're able to block the cave. And Gilbin comes over, and he actually holds up another thing that he smuggled that Vadark failed to pilfer from him from his inside tunic. He had brought along a painting set, and he starts writing on the wall, "Danger, do not open." And he writes it again in a second language, Elvish. Then he writes it in a third language, Gnomish. Then he writes it in a fourth language, which is Goblin. And he goes, Well, at least now some people won't think there's treasure buried here.
Ember goes, that's absolutely great. This is absolutely what we needed.
And thank you. And I will, begrudgingly agree and chime in with like, well, he didn't help move the stones. At least he did something useful. Good job. And Gilbin won't really seem to acknowledge the compliment from either of you, but he'll feel, put his paints away and then look, not smugly, but he'll look a little bit like chagrined at Vadark and like kind of like, sorry I didn't bring up that I had these paints when you were pointing out what I shouldn't bring with me.
Some small comforts are okay. Vadak will sort of indicate the fiddle that's strapped to his backpack.
And he'll nod his head. And with that, the two of them seem keen on getting back to the guild. Is there anything any of you would like to do before we head back to that area?
Duray just says to everyone, says to Aya and Gilbin, like, guys, you handled yourself really well. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I had doubts when we first started this, but you guys really proved yourself. I'm proud of both of you.
I was gonna be like, thank you. I know. Yes. I am looking forward to when I am out of school and you guys will have me in your adventuring party full time.
Yep, we all did a good job. Okay, night fell, cool bugs come out at night. Let's go.
And Gilbin would give you a practiced bow of thank you. And with that said, we will go ahead and go to the scene change. But there's going to be one thing that's going to occur as you guys are departing. So as you guys are leaving the area, Gilbin is once again towards the back of the group. Aya's a little bit further ahead as you guys are trying to make some distance between yourselves and the recent battle before you set up camp for the night. And behind you in the mountain pass, you're going to hear what sounds like a landslide. And it could not have occurred from that cave. It never would have made that much noise. But it makes you wonder, is there someone else down there? Are they still digging? Or are they trying to find things to bring up? Because that landslide came abruptly with no new weather, no new shaking, nothing to cause it. And then you heard the sound like a thunder strike as it reverberated around and the sound reached you. And Brooks and any of your other casters here, especially you Aves, you may have recognized the telltale sound of someone casting the spell Thunderstep. You think someone might have been leading up to this other thing, and it gives you more reason to make space between yourselves in this area and continue on. With that, the adventure is starting to come to a close. You proceed back to the Limping Pony, and as you're going into there, Flix is meeting you at the door. He's thanking you all for a job well done, happy to see that you're all back, and then gesturing towards Aya and Gilbin to report back to their respective wards, and they will be filled in after that. And Flix invites all of you to come into the Limping Pony and says, well, it's time for a debriefing. I need to give a report on how the quest went, give you guys your reward for that. Hopefully you went well and we can give a reward. But I also need to provide a write-up of how those two did. So where do you want to begin? Shall we begin with the spiders? Are they taken care of? Too big of an issue? What's up?
The spiders themselves have been dealt with. However, one of their caves had reached into the upper reaches of the Underdark. There was the scent of a basilisk in the area. Whilst we have sealed the cave, it may be prudent to keep an eye on this area.
I appreciate that. Well, Basilisk wasn't a part of the deal. I'm glad you didn't traverse into there and stumble upon it. That's good news. All of you are fine though. No issues, no need for restoration spells or anything else.
No need.
That's good. Well, I'm very happy to know that all of you are back safe and sound. How many spiders were there? Last reports had indicated there was as many as 2.
We encountered 4 spiders. There was also evidence that someone may have traversed into the Underdark. It was a long time ago, but it still is worth mentioning. There might be people down there.
Okay, I'll put together another bill and set up a quest. Would you all like dibs on this next adventure to go without your wards to explore and see what is down there?
It would be of interest.
I'll keep that in
Yes.
mind. We'll send a scout out to determine the threat level so we can overall classify the bounty and make sure it falls within your ability to complete. Well, that's 4 spiders. All right, I'll talk with Penny, my manager, and see if we can't get a kicker reward for the quest. We only expected 2 to be there. I'm glad you kept them safe. Speaking of them, everything go okay?
Are they still with us?
They are not. They were asked to head back before you went into the inn.
She did. We learned that she could do backflips really well.
I didn't realize she was a gymnast. Flick's comment.
Aya seems to be, very agile, very good with strength and melee. Had some difficulty with softening up to others, but then eventually was able to come around and did fairly well.
Okay, and he'll, 1 second, he'll go get a piece of paper and take some notes and go. The teachers wanted to know if she was able to manage her temper and follow directions.
When she softened up, she did pretty well. She did encounter kind of some issues during the night, but did a good job trying to like walk herself off, give herself space.
I see. Well, I'll make a note of that. Would this be accurate to say then? Did not initially get on well, but after some time started to warm up to the group.
Some time and a little challenge, but yes.
Some time and some challenge. Okay. Any particular feedback you want to give for her teacher, like a specific point?
It may be prudent to teach her the value of creatively using information she is taught instead of just simply memorizing it.
Okay, so instead of having a plan for every situation, learning how to apply solutions flexibly?
I'd say that's a fair compromise to my words.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to give too much. Her teachers, they're good, but they're the ones that push the memorization in the first place. So, okay, I've got some good feedback there. Anything else you want to add in, we can add into the notes and reports. Gilbin, however, his father was here earlier, and he wanted to know whether or not his son was finally dead so they could move on, in so many words. However, he was very dismayed to find all of his son's belongings still at the Limping Pony and asked why we did this. So that's the first initial question of, why did the group strip Gilbin of his belongings?
Well, he was carrying far more than he needed. It would have
I-
only have served to get in the way in
Yeah.
the wilderness.
I agree with you. I just needed to have it from your own mouth. I don't want to speak for you all, so thank you. Okay. With that said, I'll butter that up for merchant talk to make him feel good about himself, without putting words in your mouth. What about how Gilbin performed? He didn't seem like he was very interested in going at all. So could you give me some feedback to provide to his father on how he handled himself?
The kid was obviously nervous. He didn't want to come, but when push came to shove, he really stepped it up, and I think he did okay.
Okay. So was able to, is there a specific thing he did, or just in general, like he kept stepping up?
It took him a while to kind of find his footing, but he eventually, like when we encountered the spiders, he was willing to, like, I remember that kid, he took that mace and he tried so hard. It was so cute, but I mean, he showed a lot of courage and bravery in that moment, and I know it wasn't easy for him.
I'll take some more notes and go, okay. I got to keep it succinct. So would you say that when in combat, he willingly stepped forward and engaged in battle and then tried his best to continue the fight?
I would say
Yes.
so.
Any specific feedback that you want to give, or of any of it all, any of you, about Gilbin?
I think Gilbin is a strong intellect. I mean, he knew different languages that we didn't even know about. So I think his strength actually comes from his knowledge, and I think we can use that in other quests.
Oh, yes, he speaks 6 languages fluently, and he also has a knack for history as well. However, these are things I shouldn't put in the report. As his father said, him pursuing these endeavors have been a waste of his time. But I could state that, well, no, I don't want to say it like that. Is there an example of where his languages came into play and was helpful, or his intellect?
He left warnings on the collapsed cave. He was able to write them in several different languages, therefore
Around the
avoiding
basilisk.
danger for others.
Oh, that's a good, thank you. That's a good one I can work with. Okay. So he was able to write warnings in multiple languages for other travelers until we deal with a greater threat. And did you all put him up for this then, and like mention that that's what he should do?
No, he took his own initiative to do so.
Oh, well, I can rewrite it that way then. I probably have to play around with the wording, but I got the note. Well, with that, I think that's great. As agreed upon, all of you are going to be getting 15 gold for this quest. And then I'm going to reach out to Penny and see if I can't get each of you an additional 5 gold for those extra spiders. Just don't hold your breath, but I'm going to push for it. And with that, the adventure of dealing with the spiders along the mountain pass has come to a conclusion. And at this point, with the therapeutic encounter, we have the opportunity to pause and say, as players, as a therapeutic DM, and then if Nick were here, he would be acting as the therapist, taking notes on all of you right now on how you were acting as individuals and players during this quest. But I'll be doing that for you all. So we had 2 primary NPCs coming into the session. And in a typical therapeutic encounter, what's really important is talking with the clients and identifying where and how they felt connections. And connections, it's very important to understand they can be both good and bad. It doesn't matter as long as there's a connection that you can build upon. So we would start off by looking at Aya, and we would say, how did Aya make you feel as a person, or make your character feel? And we approach that question to introduce to the players the different lenses, the player lens and then the character lens. And we want them to try to deliberately break them apart. It's okay if they have overlapping opinions of Aya. That's totally fine. But we would invite that type of feedback. We wouldn't dig into this though. In a group session, you're going to run into time constraints heavily. But during a one-on-one session, you can use those to kind of have a banter back and forth, and you can easily insert those opinions and feelings. In a group setting, I would just say, how would you feel about that? And I'll invite the group to think about that as a homework assignment, and then try to give some feedback on their personal lens and their character lens on how they felt about Aya and how they felt about Gilbin during the adventure. I would also ask them how they felt about how their character peers, not the players, just their character peers reacted to those NPCs as well. And I would say, you don't have to put a whole paragraph or a write up. Just give me like a single word or two. Did they react hostile? Was it frustration? Was it happy? Was it supportive? And then try to get that type of a feel on how those other characters are going. And then I would end it with, how do you wish Aya had acted from a character perspective? How did you want that character to act based on your interactions with them? So you acted with them, A, what was the response you really wanted to get when you did that? And all of this is then to introduce the opportunity of discussing perspectives and saying, how did they feel? How did they feel? What did we know about them? And then talking about what we can control, what we can influence, and ultimately what we should just learn to accept, even though we can't control it or influence it. And these will bring into the following quests. So when I run therapeutic encounters, I like to do a 9-week course. And this would allow me the opportunity to see how Aya resonated with the group, how Gilbin resonated with the group. And if they resonated strongly, I have now gained 2 very powerful tools to then deploy in future quests and insert into additional sessions. And then to allow them to see growth, or even better yet, to watch them witness failing and watch them witness through the NPC of struggling and going against situations they can't control. And I found a lot of success working with my clients, helping them advocate the right skills and the right mentality through their character. Even though they themselves are personally struggling with it in real life, they do a great job of advocating through those peers. And outside of therapeutic sessions, I found a lot more engagement with my groups, where when they have NPCs with flaws and difficulties and issues, they tend to stick with them a lot more powerfully. Even if they don't like them, they stick with them. And as a result, they get more invested into the game. They're more willing to show up. They're more willing to overcome issues where, like with anxiety or social anxiety or other problems, they'll step into the game and they'll want to. And better yet, suddenly they'll now have a connection. Everyone can talk about how frustrated they were when Aya showed up. Everyone can talk about how funny it was when she did a backflip. Everyone could talk about all these other things about the spider and how Gilbin was trying his best, but has only hit ground in the entire 2-hour session that he's been trying to fight. And those connections allow us to then grow and explore. What I would recommend not doing is I would recommend not trying to use your characters to force a perspective. And with that said, I'm going to stop sharing on this side, start sharing over on my other screen. All right, so I have a simple Microsoft Word thing. And when I started working on this session, I just basically said, I want to try to work with a group of individuals with this. Typically, when I'm working with a mental health professional and we're working on skills development, I try to advise that mental health specialist to limit the highest level issues that we're working on, because if we get too granular, we're going to run into problems with trying to either alienate certain people, they're going to get disconnected, or we're going to hyper fixate on particular skills and it's not going to feel like a game, it's going to feel like a lesson. So I wanted to work on the highest level of aggression and violence, sensitivity, criticism, neglect, and body image. And then I just wrote what I wanted to achieve from there. I want to use a foil. Jumping into battle might feel forced. Maybe have them go to a camp. And so I started putting these areas where I can have an encounter. An encounter can be 5 minutes or it can be 2 hours long. And I started kind of breadcrumbing myself until I eventually got to what I wanted, which is my intentions and my goals. My goal was to have the clients or players actively use skills involves in calming down, viewing things from alternate perspectives, recognizing toxic traits, recognizing how very influential external sources can cause duress in decision making, even when they're not present. As an example, Gilbin wanted to do better, but every time he tried to step forward, he immediately stopped and then basically echoed his own lack of self-worth, which are sentiments of his father. So those were my goals. After that, I made some notes about like who the players were. I made some brief notes about the characters, and then I just wrote the start, like the very start role play fun. Everything after that I have done through improv with all of you. I had the maps ready to go and some enemies, but honestly, at a whim, if you guys had been really stuck on staying in the limping pony and not proceeding forward, that's where the adventure would have stayed as a result. But in this case, for the sake of showing you, I had prepared Flix. Flix was my means of helping to help the players move along to where I have identified and prepared my encounters. And he's a person that helps make it feel organic. So Flix became a new foil for me to leverage and use as well. And this is essentially how I drafted a therapeutic encounter for a one-shot session. If I were to do this long term, I would have a bit more details about my NPCs. I would have made more effort into expanding on their backstories. And I would have had probably a few more opportunities and wants and desires for them. Like maybe Aya wouldn't have just been aggression and violence and sensitive criticism. She could have been looking for a role model as well, and try to find someone within the group to fill that shoes. And Gilbin could have been looking for someone to teach him how to walk into a class to become a wizard or a warlock, respectively, because he has the aptitude for it but doesn't recognize it within himself.